Shalom everyone, this is Chris Shoemaker, also known as Yehuda ben Shomer, and welcome to the Daily Drosh. Today's Daily Drosh is taken from Matthew chapter 4 verse 1, and I'm going to be reading from the Jerusalem Bible translation. And it says, "Then Yeshua was led by the Spirit out into the wilderness." I'm going to stop right there. We look at the wilderness as a bad, negative, dry, desolate place where we're hounded and we're persecuted, we're tempted and we're tried. Yeah, all that's true. But did you know that the Holy Spirit can lead us to those places? It's not the devil who tempts us and draws us into these places. It's not that we just kind of blindingly stumble into these places and all of a sudden open our eyes and realize, oh, wow, I'm in the wilderness. No, it says, then Yeshua was led by the Spirit out into the wilderness. Okay, why was he led by the Spirit out into the wilderness? To be tempted by the devil. Wow. What's the reason and what's the purpose for that? Well, we know that for Yeshua, it was to prove that he was the Messiah, that he had strength to overcome and conquer the devil, the evil one, the fallen one. But for us, why are we led into the wilderness? It's not that we're led into the wilderness in order to be tempted so that we will fall and fail, but we are led into the wilderness so that we can, number one, rest. Number one, get alone with God and clear our head. And number two, we can receive strength. Because it was in the wilderness, in the desert places, that God showed up the most. When did God provide for Elijah? When he was in the wilderness, and he was provided water from the brook and meat by the ravens. When was the manna and the quail for the children of Israel? When did that take place? When they were in the wilderness. When did the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud show up to lead and guide Israel in the wilderness? When did the Red Sea part? That was when they were in the wilderness. Some of the greatest miracles and greatest battles ever won for God's people happened in the wilderness. And one of the greatest victories that ever took place, Yeshua over the devil, took place in the wilderness. So the wilderness is not a comfortable place. It's not a fun place, a recreational place. It's not a vacation spot, but it is a spot where we see God's miracles and we see God's hand and we see God work in our life. Though it's uncomfortable, though it hurts, though it's painful, we don't like to go there. That's when we're going to draw closer to God. And we see these miracles and we see God work on our behalf. We're going to draw closer to him, and we're going to gain the ammunition and the strength that we need to overcome the devil when we are tried, when we are tempted, when we are put to the test. So don't be afraid of the wilderness, because when you're in the wilderness, nobody's got your back but God. It's just you and God. It's like a story that I heard about a rite of passage for a Native American boy, and he just had a deerskin loincloth and a knife. And he was taken out in the wilderness and set on a tree stump in the middle of nowhere. And he said, you can't move from this spot, all day or all night. No matter what, you can't move from this spot. And his father, it looked like he just left him in the wilderness. Well, night fell, and the boy thought he was by himself. He heard scary noises and terrible and frightening things, but he remained there. And when the sun came up in the morning, he saw, just in the distance, his father watching over him. He didn't realize that his father was watching over him all night long. So sometimes we're in the wilderness, we can't see God, we can't feel God, we think we're alone, but God is there, and he's watching over us, and he's protecting us. He's never going to leave us alone in the wilderness to be consumed or attacked by wild animals or wild beasts, just like this Native American boy's father had no intention of having him killed or attacked or harmed by any wild animal by night. He was there. The boy just had to prove his trust and his bravery and his faith in God, in his own father, and in his traditions and in his people. So Yeshua was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. So when you go out into the wilderness and you find yourself in the wilderness, you just didn't stumble there. You were led there. There's a reason and a purpose there. It's to build you up and to draw you closer to God, not to destroy you. So remember that the wilderness is a very spirit-filled place. That's where you're going to see the miracles of God happen. Hey, thanks for listening. Shalom and Shavua Tov. Come check out The Weekly Way, your weekly devotional commentary on the Torah, Haftorah, and Brit Chadasha portions.